Alright, back to another album review. You know, there's fucked up shit happening in Ukraine right now, and at the time of me making this video. And hopefully this won't escalate to World War III. In the meantime, I figured that we should talk about something slightly more lighthearted. Anyways, I know that I'm in the middle of reviewing the material from Psychostick. And today I'm going to take a look at a side project of theirs called Evacuate Chicago. Long story short, Evacuate Chicago is essentially Psychostick without the humor. They only released one album, that is Veracity from 2010. This album was recorded at Toxic Recording between 2004 and May of 2008. It was released on January 26, 2010 under Rock Ridge Music, which is the same label that Psychostick were with at the time. It was produced by Alex D'Antre and Josh Key. And Josh did the mixing and the engineering as always. Since Psychostick didn't have an official bassist for this album, Josh played the bass despite the fact that he's the guitarist. You also have Rob Kersey on lead vocals as well as Alex on drums and backing vocals. What's interesting is that 9 of the 12 songs on this album were written by Alex, and the other 3 are written by Josh. The album was mastered by Dave Shirk at Sonorous Mastering Inc. Chad Furchow is the guy who did the artwork for the album. Since this is a serious album, it touches upon metalcore, alternative rock, and even experimental rock. As I stated earlier, this album was in the works since 2004. It wasn't finished until 2008 and was finally released in early 2010. Alex said in an interview with the Metal Reporter that Evacuate Chicago is mostly his own project, considering the fact that he wrote 75% of the songs, in addition to playing the drums, performing backing vocals, and serving as a producer. He also found this album to be very personal to him, since he wrote most of the songs at the age of 19 back in 2004. Anyways, let's discuss the songs. The album starts with occasional letter number 1. The very beginning of this song is already at full force. You can easily tell it's in the metalcore genre. It's also the first of 3 songs that Josh wrote. And I'll let you know when we get to a song that he wrote, since the rest were all written by Alex. I think this song starts the album off perfectly, and all gives you a taste of what Psychostick would be like without the humor. After that is Nothing Like You. It's the first of 9 songs written by Alex. One thing I should mention is that this is the shortest song on the album at 1 minute and 56 seconds long. On top of that, this is the only song on the album with a runtime of less than 2 minutes. Up next is Deny. One interesting fact about this song is that this was the very first song that Alex ever wrote. Psychostick even recorded a demo in 2004, and the demo was available on their websites. The next song is called Perfect Ratio. The song is much more experimental than the previous ones, and sounds more upbeat rather than angry and heavy like the majority of the songs on this album. Although I didn't care much about this song initially, it eventually grew on me. We followed up with The Hole. It's not a song that was written by Josh. Not only is this song heavy and angry, it's also more in the realm of metalcore. It's also the most popular song from this album. It's followed up by The Damage Has Been Done. What's interesting is that this was originally going to be the title of the album. I believe the reason why this was going to be the title is because Alex was miserable throughout 2004. We'll get back to this later. The other thing I should mention is that this is my favorite song from this album. As that is Proof of Dark Matter. The song is more lighthearted and is in the realms of both alternative rock and experimental rock. As an added bonus, it even features Rachel Silverton on the piano. Speaking of which, Rachel was featured on this song, Girl Directions by Psychostick. And I already talked about that song when I reviewed Sandwich last week. I should also mention that I didn't care much about the song when I first heard it, but it soon grew on me. Next song is Progress Beyond Repair. One thing I should mention is that this is the second shortest song on the album at 2 minutes and 11 seconds long. Followed up with Velociraptors. The title alone sounds like it would be from Psychostick, and it is in a way, since Evacuate Chicago is essentially Psychostick without the humor. Up next is Time-Lapse Photography. It's the last of the 3 songs on this album that were written by Josh. It's also the second longest song on the album at 4 minutes and 28 seconds long. It's followed up by Peace, Love, and Santa Claus. It's not a song where the title alone sounds like it would actually be from Psychostick, even though this is a serious song rather than a comedic one. And this album ends with Forgiveness Epidemic. And one thing I should mention is that this is the longest song on the album at 4 minutes and 48 seconds long. And I personally think this is the perfect song to end the album with. And when I was doing my research, I read that Alex wrote most of the songs in 2004 because he was miserable during that year. I can relate to this because I hated 2004 more than I hated 2003. Granted, every year after 1999 has been a total shit show, and 2020 is the worst offender. Anyways, Alex said in a Psychostick webcast that Veracity was a product of 2004. I'll say that it's unlikely that there will be a follow-up to Veracity, since Psychostick are already happy and don't want to write dishonest songs. Even though I'd be interested in seeing a follow-up to Veracity, I understand their decision. However, this doesn't mean that they're pretending this album never existed. I mean, you can actually see Psychostick LLC right there on the back of the jewel case. On top of that, you can even get a brand new copy of this album from Psychostick's web store, as well as Evacuate Chicago's Bandcamp. There will be links to those in the description. In addition to that, Psychostick occasionally perform Evacuate Chicago songs during live streams and live shows. When they do this, Rob Kersey and Matty Resnick take off their hats, and Josh Key takes off his Hachimaki. Also, Matty plays the bass with a guitar pick when playing an Evacuate Chicago song, since that's how Josh played the bass on the album. Even though Matty normally plucks the strings with his fingers when playing the bass. For instance, if I was a bass player, I'd be using a guitar pick. Though I have nothing against bassists who use their fingers instead of a pick, because I let them make their own decisions. Then again, most bass players use their fingers to begin with. Anyways, I couldn't find any information on how this album did commercially. If anyone knows, be sure to let me know in the comments. When it comes to critic reviews, I saw that CWG magazine gave this album 2 out of 4 stars. Which doesn't make any sense because this album is way better than they make it out to be. As for my opinion on it, I think this is a great album overall. I really appreciate how experimental it is. And I find experimental music as a whole to be quite fascinating. I'm trying out new techniques to, pushing the boundaries of music. This may not be a comedic album by any means, but it's definitely worth listening to. The serious tone of this album makes this the heaviest and angriest album that Psychostick have ever made. Overall, I highly recommend this album. Before I end the review, I'd like to give a shout out to the Legit Gamer 91 for supporting my work, being a good friend, and helping me with my stories. A link to his channel will be in the description, and I recommend subscribing to his channel. Now is the part where I question you. Have you listened to Veracity? If so, what are your thoughts on it? What's your favorite song from it? Do you think it was a good idea for Psychostick to do a serious album under the moniker of Evacuate Chicago? Do you wish these guys would make a follow-up to Veracity? And let me know in the comments. If you like the video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to hit the notification bell to notify of future uploads. Thanks for watching. I'll be back soon with another review.